I learned how to do it when I was younger. By it, I mean setting boundaries and setting goals for myself when I was younger, right? So even before I got married, I put on the practice of seeing my life like an onion. Yes, onion. You know onion. Where there are many layers in your life, right? So imagine with me, if you will, right at the core, who is the real Rainer. The only person that knows the real Rainer, right, is actually not even Amanda, it's God, right? So God is my total core, right? I can be free, I can cry like nobody business. Amanda has never seen me cry like nobody business, so that's my total core, right? But the next layer, other than the core, is actually Amanda, because she's my spouse, right? Then followed by Ned, which is my son, then my family, then my closer circle members and friends and stuff like that. So these are some boundaries that I have. So why am I saying this when it comes to promotions? Is that when I'm single, I don't have a wife, right? I am me myself, so I need to chiong as much as I can. So this is talking to the singles out there, right? So if you need to, just chiong as much as you can. Be the best that God has called you to be. But when you make certain decisions in your life, certain life transitional points, then you need to ask yourself, right? When I transit, would there be something that I give and take? Or would there be some things that I need to prioritize or reprioritize, right? So for example, Amanda was never my wife in the beginning, and when she became my girlfriend and then eventually wife, she moved in proximity with me, as in the onion, so to speak, right? Then she becomes my priority versus, for example, work. And that's what I'm trying to get at. So when it comes to promotions, for me is I need to be a good father in the way that, for example, I need to provide for my family. So getting promotions may be the journey to provide to my family. Yes, getting promotions, getting opportunities could be the journey, but it's never my goal anymore. Because my goal is not to get promoted. My goal is to be a good father, to provide for my family. Let's say good father to me is providing the family. So the goals kind of change, the perspective kind of change.
When our son was a lot younger, I think definitely he would take priority over my work, because he is our priority, my priority. But when I went back after my maternity leave, and then I went back to work, I think for me, it took a while, but now that I've kind of got like a rhythm going, so when I'm at work, and we do make alternative caregiving arrangements for our son when we are both at work. So it could, for our case, it's our parents, but if you don't have that like parental support, there's also institutional support like the infant cares and child cares that we can tap on as well. So I think it's important to make sure that we do have alternative caregiving arrangements when we're at work, so that we can focus on our work. And for me, I clearly like block out like 6 to 8 p.m. every day, because that's the period of time where I put my son to sleep. So I work in a government agency, so your working hours are not really like working hours. Like sometimes you have to work after hours and things like this. So for me, work will never be touched 6 to 8 p.m. Because that's the time I have with my son, and that's the way that I try to be the best mom of sorts to my child, where I fully give him the time that I have set aside for him. And then after 8 p.m, if I have work to do, then I'll continue doing work. Otherwise, I'll use like my own me time, things like that. So I really kind of separate them, make sure that if it's work, it's work, if it's family, it's family. And then and I still get to be the mom that I want to be for my son.
When we had our second kid, it was really so close to my first kid. They're basically 1.5 years apart. And I remembered that our second baby, at the young age of just less than a month, she also caught a bad cold. And every night she was crying. I was still busy with work. I came back, having to rush from the office. I need to make sure she goes to bed. For my eldest goes to bed while I take turns my wife to care for the second kid. Second baby, barely 1 month old, coughing away, yet couldn't sleep. And I remember I actually yelled at my baby a few times at night, because one of my greatest lack is patience, and it really shows when I'm being boggled on by many things. And at that point of time, I really felt like, I'm not even sure the word is angry, but more like burdened. Like, why am I so tired? Why do I need to do this? Why can't they become 18-year-old teenagers now? Or like, like just be independent. And I remember then that I felt so physically worn out that I decided that, I think what we really need to do was to find ways to get help instead, to address the root of the issue. So at least from my experience, I think what we tried to do, and it was hard for me, was to really take a step back and look where we needed help. And I think we were fortunate that Geraldine's sister was able to come in to give us a helping hand, and that helped elevate the load on us a little bit, which made life a little bit better.
I think a very tricky one really is communication and taking time to listen, because it's so easy sometimes you see like a misbehavior and then you go like, you catch them and then you're about to punish, but to just even pause and take time to listen and say, oh, why did you do that? Can you explain yourself? Or even for myself with my wife, taking time to listen, and then occasionally also for myself learning to explain, because I tend to assume a lot, isn't it obvious already? Haven't I said that before? But one practice really is just to pause and just be patient to explain yourself again, and then have your kids, have your wife, your parents, take time to explain. And when communication comes into alignment, I think we suddenly find that we can move without having this logjam, and it's a lot less difficult to get things moving or to get things done. To train up routines like media filters. I think all of us would be facing issues like how to do with the phone and things like that. But how do we train the routines that would allow them to cultivate care and good habits, rather than just strictly like can use, cannot use, that kind of thing. Another area would be like emotional habits in their response to siblings. There are always going to be fights and things. So one practice I do whenever they fight would be to stop and then have them sort things out. But then I would actually model how they should communicate. So in modeling, I'd say, okay, you should say this, and then the other party you should say this, and so on. And that helped to deconflict the situation by walking through the actual discipline of managing a emotional conflict. Yeah, and finally to invest in building a family prayer altar. That could be at a daily or weekly or monthly kind of a context, but to have a kind of a family listening circle where you can reset at an occasional, at some kind of a frequency.
I kind of like remembered this one thing that I went for a class, and they talk about a breath prayer thing, that because there's this one verse that pray without ceasing in all times, right? So the question is, how do you pray without ceasing in that sense? And she introduced this thing about prayer, like breath, like as you breathe you pray. So breath prayers throughout the whole day, and that helped me to sometimes to take a pause, when things happen, like before I react, I'll just take a breath prayer just to remind myself to talk to God in that moment, like just to what should I be doing, what would God want me to do